Wish Dish, and we're here with Victoria Glover, the president of To Write Love on Her Arms at UGA. And we're going to talk about her story, as well as talking about mental health and her interest in that. Okay, so can you explain what To Write Love on Her Arms at UGA is, what you do?
Yeah, so nationally, To Write Love in Her Arms is a nonprofit organization geared towards mental health awareness, and specifically our U chapter works to eliminate the stigma around mental health on our college campus, as well as raising money that goes directly back to like treatment and recovery for people who go to counseling and therapy.
Well, okay, so how did you hear about this organization and get involved?
I think the very first time I heard about it was in high school. They were on social media a lot, their little like logo, and I guess it piqued my interest because I did my research and looked into it, and I thought it was really, really interesting. And at the time I didn't realize, what a U chapter was or anything, so it kind of was just something that I followed like online, like through their blogging, but that was pretty much it.
Oh, wow, okay, so it peaked in high school. So did you do anything in high school that piqued that interest other than getting involved with To Write Love on Her Arms, or that got that started?
I think just like generally experiences that I had in high school. I know my family went through a period of time where we did like family counseling for some issues that had arisen, and I kind of, for the first time, like understood or felt like mentally I wasn't stable, I guess, and I had never really thought about my mental health prior to like going to counseling and having to resolve issues in that department for myself. So that's kind of what started it, and my interest for mental health started there and kind of picked up over time.
Well, so you mentioned your family. And that also helped your interest in getting into like the subject of mental health.
Yeah.
So how do they feel now that you're a leader in an organization that helps with that?
My parents are proud. I would say they are, I guess, surprised, because when I first went to like college and decided to come here to UGA, I was like pre-med, so I mean my path changed a lot since I first got here, but they see how passionate I am about it, and they're honestly my biggest cheerleaders. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
family is so important, so that's awesome that you have a really big support system from your family. It's really awesome. So To Write Love on Your Arms, we've talked about that, and your need in that organization and your interest in that. What else have you done here at UGA with mental health?
My first little dabble, I guess, my freshman year, I did a sorority pageant, Miss Black University of Georgia pageant hosted by Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and I ran on the platform of mental health awareness because I thought it was really important, and I ended up winning. So my tribute, I guess, as the reigning Miss Black University of Georgia 2013 was a program that talked about mental health awareness within minority communities. So I actually partnered with the sorority and we put on the program, and that's when I first realized this is something that we need to talk about more, because the reactions that I got from people were good and bad, in the sense that a lot of people didn't understand why I was doing this or why I was so passionate about it. Like, I actually had somebody in Tate, I'll never forget this day, that I told him about the program and like, hey, do you want to come out? And he actually laughed at me. And he was like, this is stupid. Why would I talk to anybody about? Yeah, no, really. But I guess that was kind of like an eye opener for me, as there's really a big need for this here, because there are just so many people who are really unaware of how much this affects people on college campuses.
Right, so you mentioned the reaction.
Yeah.
And now telling this story and writing for the Wish Dish and getting involved with that, how have you seen any other reaction, maybe a positive story of how you've impacted someone's life from what you do?
I can definitely say the Mental Health Awareness Week that To Write Love in Her Arms and SGA partnered to do September the 8th through the 11th was extremely impactful. I had a lot of people come back or through word of mouth talk about, how it just felt better to know that our campus supported something like this. We had a panel the very first night of the week, and we had different mental health professionals come out, and we opened the discussion to talk about people who are dealing with people who have attempted suicide, people who have relatives who attempted suicide, or even if you haven't, just people who want to be more mentally healthy. And as we left the room and like the program was over, these girls were talking behind me and they were just like, I'm so glad that this is here because, the girl that was talking behind me, like talked during the program and shared that her brother took his own life. And that was the first time that she had ever opened up to anybody about the incident since it had happened. So I really think that it's great that, we're trying to open up this conversation and really change the culture here about mental health because people are definitely being receptive to it.
No, I completely agree, definitely. I think it's a subject that needs to be talked about and it's very helpful to a lot of people who don't talk about it. You mentioned this awareness week.
Yeah.
What was the name of this week?
So it actually coincided with To Write Love in Our Arms National Suicide Prevention Week, but we also made it like UGA's Mental Health Awareness Week because we wanted to encompass a lot of topics that, kind of were umbrellaed underneath mental health. So not just suicide, but like a lot of different things.
So how did you go about planning this? You mentioned you partnered with SGA. So what was it like preparing for that week-long event?
Honestly, no, I'm just kidding. No, it was great. It was great. Honestly, this started as an idea last semester, since I first got here. It started as an idea, but I was approached by John L. Simpson, our SGA president, last semester because one of his candidacy platforms was mental health awareness. So he was just like, hey, I know that you're really passionate about this and SGA wants to do something. So from there, like the idea kind of just bloomed. Like, yeah, we're gonna have a week and we're gonna have like a lot of cool events. So we got together over the summertime and like we listed out like these are the things that we want to do. I know when we first chartered our chapter of To Write Love in Our Arms, because we weren't on UGA's campus when I first got here, we had to go to a conference where they taught us about dealing with like these issues on your campus, and like people from other chapters gave like their advice and like this is what they had to go through, and these are the like, kind of events that they had done. So we took some of our ideas from that. I know our flag demonstration that we did on actual World Suicide Prevention Day, that was an idea of one of the creators of To Write Love in Our Arms, and we brought it here. We planned over the summer about what would be the most impactful for our campus, and To Write Love in Our Arms is passionate about stories, we're passionate about vulnerability, and we're passionate about spreading the word about hope and healing. So spoken word and open mic nights is another thing that we find really effective, which is what we did to culminate our week, which was so amazing. It went so well. And yeah, the planning pretty much took place over the summer and into the beginning of the school year. We partnered also with Psi Chi. They're an honorary psychology fraternity, and Active Minds, another mental health organization on campus.
Wow, so that took a lot of planning, but obviously it was all worth it.
Yeah, a lot of planning, a lot of stress, but hey, it happened.
Yeah,
it's good. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome. So you mentioned in your story as well that you're part of class.
Yeah, I'm a class advocate in university housing.
Cool. So what does that entail with your interest in mental health as well, or is this just another branch of your interest?
I think it's a little both. The Class Advocate program exists to promote diversity and inclusivity in the residence halls. So me being an advocate of mental health, knowing what it feels like to be secluded, knowing what it feels like to feel alone, I think it's super important that we have these roles in the residence halls just to reach out to first year students. I work in a primarily freshman dorm, so the class program isn't directly tied to mental health, but definitely my passion for mental health is seen through my job because I do lots of programs and events in the residence halls that deal with mental health as well.
Okay, so you mentioned that Class Advocate is also in minority communities. This has things to do with minority communities.
Right, yeah. The program was typically actually created at first for African American students, but now the program is expanded to all students, but we focus on making sure that minorities feel included.
Cool. So is that like an interest of yours, like a very high interest of yours?
Oh yeah, definitely. Of course I'm interested in mental health overall, but I have a special vested interest in the mental health in minority communities, only because that's where I come from. And speaking like as a biracial female in South Georgia, it's very hard to talk about mental health. It's very hard even in the Black community, like to disclose that you have an issue with somebody else, because that's not typically what you do. And I'm sure, of course, mental health is stigmatized overall, but it's so much more of an issue than I believe that minority communities will allow it to be made out to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot, it hits harder it hits closer to home for a lot of minority communities.
Mental health?
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. I'm glad you found an interest that is so at home to you, because that's as long as you love something and can put your heart into it, and obviously you can with everything that you do. So that's amazing. So now we're going to kind of move to storytelling.
Okay.
Because you mentioned To Write Love in Our Arms. Y'all are all about storytelling.
Yes,
Sharing stories.
definitely.
So how was it when you decided to share your story, and you mentioned that it's hard to talk about it in minority communities, about mental health and even just mental health alone. So how was it to come out and talk about it with other people who, you mentioned the story as well, of someone who may not understand it? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, how do you make people understand why you do what you do?
See, that's the funny thing. There's no way to make people ever get it, but I do believe that, if you're passionate about something and you put in the work behind it, people are going to notice it.
Right.
So I guess persistence is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just very adamant about what I do, and I'm never afraid to talk about what I've been through, or the fact that I do have a counselor, or the fact that I am a huge advocate for mental health awareness or suicide prevention. I mean, basically through conversation, and really just spreading the word about how these issues that people have, or like having feelings even, it's not foreign. I know, like, in our society, it's almost like we're not allowed to feel. We're not allowed to experience things. We're not allowed to take ourselves into account and care for ourselves. It's almost like you just keep going and you're just expected to brush it off and, oh well, you'll get over it. And that's not an effective way to run your life. You're gonna run into the ground eventually if you don't address how you feel.
Right, so you said addressing how you feel, which is obviously a good first step to have. But another thing with the Wish Dish is storytelling, but also relating and connecting to people who have these stories. So what would your advice be to people who may not be ready to come out and say, you know what, I really do want to stabilize my mental health, I want to know more about it, I want to share my stories that maybe I haven't shared. What advice would you give them about sharing their story like you did?
I mean, I would just say, if you're not ready, then don't force yourself. Everyone's story is different, okay? I have never been clinically diagnosed as somebody with depression. I've never attempted my own suicide. So I know that I'm coming from a very different perspective than most people who have, been through these things. But I am somebody who goes through what my old therapist would call like depressive moods. So I would have like mood swings where I was very, very not myself, I guess is the best way to put it, and just not thriving like I should be. And I do believe that, like, whether or not people want to admit it, I think everybody goes through those periods once or twice in their life, whether it's because you lost a relative or you're just going through a tough transition. So I would say give yourself time and definitely do the work for yourself on the inside to make sure you're okay with sharing your story, because it's not something that everybody is going to be able to do at the same exact time.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so
That makes sense.
I would just say give yourself time, but don't ever feel pressured that you have to run out and tell everybody, because it's different for a lot of people.
Very much so. No, that's awesome advice, and it's very comforting to know, because like you said, everyone does go through those moments and those moods.
Yeah.
Advice to give people. It really is. Your story is absolutely incredible. But let's talk about you a little bit and where you want to go with what you're doing. So you mentioned you changed your major.
Yeah.
So where do you see yourself now with this new major, maybe like 5 years down the road?
Hopefully done with school.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Hopefully done with school. Because I do plan to apply to graduate school. This is my senior year. So I'm looking at PhD programs in counseling psychology. And my ultimate dream is to hopefully be of course, be a licensed psychologist, so I will be practicing. But I would like to work as a faculty member at another institution. My current mentor now, actually, that's what she does. She practices and she teaches and she does research, which is something I'm also very passionate about, doing research. And I just think that's the perfect job for me. I mean, there's a lot of variety in there. I love the college setting. I love working with college age students, and I would be able to continue that if I was a faculty member somewhere, and I'd still be promoting mental health and hopefully influencing a lot of people.
That's awesome. I can tell, just by the way you're talking to me, you're going to influence a lot of people, and you obviously have a set plan and you're ready to go. That's awesome. So you shared your story with the Wish Dish. So where do you see the Wish Dish going with their platform that they have? After sharing your story now, you've talked to me about what you're doing, and you've gotten involved. So with this platform, maybe in consideration with your experiences and things, where would you like to see this platform go in impacting people and connecting people?
That's a good question. Just honestly, spreading the word. I mean, getting the conversation started. There's just so much stigma everywhere in regards to mental health. And the thing is, until we have, a group of people or a collective organization of a lot of people that are, talking to their friends or making it known, this is something that not just you and I struggle with, but I mean, it's so prevalent, my hope for this would just be that people continue the conversation, people continue to spread the word, people continue to try and break down the stigma, because until we have more vulnerability, I think, on our college campuses, or in our society in general, it's not going to get much better than it is now.
Right. Well, I greatly appreciate you sitting down with me in the Wish Dish today and sharing your story again, just with more light onto it. So if you haven't checked out her story, definitely check out Victoria's story. It's awesome. But thank you so much again.
Thanks.